As we approach 1 year since the Capitol insurrection, some are wondering, could a similar attack happen following future elections? 3 retired generals are afraid it could. In a Washington Post opinion piece, they write, quote, "One of our military's strengths is that it draws from our diverse population. But without constant maintenance, the potential for a military breakdown mirroring societal or political breakdown is very real." Joining me now is one of the authors of that op-ed, General Paul Eaton. He is a retired U.S. Army Major General and a senior advisor to Vote Vets. General Eaton, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us.
I am grateful, flattered, and thank you very much.
So former President Trump announced a press conference on January 6th on the anniversary of the deadly Capitol insurrection. Given your position, what are your thoughts about that event?
Well, I believe that the executive branch had a failure to imagine. You had the President of the United States, who is in fact the Commander-in-Chief. He's the senior official in the executive branch. But the executive branch has a lot more entities, and their responsibilities are to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. They failed to imagine what the former president might do and what a mob of several thousand supporters might do at his behest. So the intent of the op-ed that we wrote is to get out in front of that imagination failure, trigger imagination of what might happen in 2024, and give the executive branch an opportunity to mitigate against possible outcomes.
Well, before we get to 2024, though, as we mentioned, the former president does intend to hold on January 6th, 2022, a press conference, and that will be the 1-year anniversary since the deadly Capitol attack. Given what you have laid out in the op-ed, you and the other 2 former military officials, what is it that you think about the former commander-in-chief holding a press conference on that particular day?
In this case, I believe that the executive branch has a terrific responsibility to contain the possibilities that might come out of a former president acting on a press conference. So I would expect that they are wargaming the possibilities and that they are putting in place contingency plans to make sure that this does not get out of hand the way it happened in the last January 6th insurrection.
And General, you say you're afraid of a potential military breakdown, which mirrors a political one. What might that look like?
Well, we draw the armed forces from the greater U.S. population. We have a significant, important political party where 39% of that party refuses to acknowledge that President Biden is the rightfully and duly elected president of the United States. 17% of that party believes that violence is a reasonable alternative to rectify a bad outcome from their point of view. So I would expect that there is a possibility of some infection of the armed forces of the United States from a grossly irresponsible political party, the GOP, the Republican Party, and men like Congressman McCarthy, men like Congressman Jordan, who refuse to do the right thing, have demonstrated fealty to the former president, and a relatively minor handful, small handful of great Americans like Congresswoman Cheney, Congressman Kinzinger, and like Mitt Romney, senator from the great state of Utah, to stimulate the real patriot Republicans to get this thing turned around to corral the Republican Party and to break this oath of fealty to the cult of Donald Trump.
So let me ask you specifically what you think needs to happen, though, from the U.S. military's perspective to avoid the kind of breakdown that you spell out in your op-ed.
When I was growing up, civics was a significant point of education. And I believe that we have apparently not done the right thing in our education system to prepare young men and women to perform their duties as loyal citizens of the United States. And when I say loyal to the support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is the oath that all men and women in the military take. So we may have an opportunity to educate in a civics lessons approach all young men and women and all serving men and women in the armed forces of the United States. We also need to war game the possibility of what might happen within military ranks. We need to red team what might happen in military ranks should there be injected a real doubt in the minds of the greater population of the United States of the integrity of our electoral process. So it's an education opportunity, and it is a wargaming opportunity to identify the weak points and to put in contingency plans to address those weak points.